You know that feeling, right? You're standing there trying to wrestle open that Fort Knox plastic packaging for a razor cartridge.
Oh, yeah. And then you look at the price.
Exactly. And you think, am I buying like aerospace parts here? It's just a razor.
It feels absurd sometimes.
Well, that whole frustrating experience, that's pretty much ground zero for our deep dive today. We're not just talking shaving, we're digging into how this total underdog, Dollar Shave Club, basically picked a fight with the heavyweight champ Gillette.
It's such a fascinating story, really, how a completely fresh perspective, a really smart, lean approach could shake up an industry that seemed, well, totally set in stone.
Right, we're basically unpacking how a tiny startup armed with not much more than a clever idea and one now famous video managed to challenge a giant.
And actually take a big bite out of their market. It's like a textbook case of disruption, but way more entertaining.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the details of how a $4,500 video, which that number still gets me, and a new kind of business model created these massive waves.
Yeah, a market that hadn't really changed in decades.
Our mission here is to figure out the mechanics behind it all, what made it work, and honestly, what are the bigger lessons for anyone in business or even just anyone who buys stuff. Get ready for some aha moments, I think.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture it. 2011. The razor aisle was Gillette. Full stop.
They owned it.
Completely.
Yeah.
We're talking something like 70% market share back in 2010. Their whole game was constant innovation. More blades, right? Pivoting heads, lubricating strips, even vibrating handles.
Yeah, the Mach 3, the Fusion.
Oh my God.
It felt like a tech arms race.
It really did. And every new bell and whistle meant a higher price tag. You could easily be paying over $20 for just a pack of replacement blades.
And buying them, oh my God, locked behind those plastic cases.
Like state secrets.
You had to hunt down an employee, get them unlocked. It was inconvenient, almost like deliberately so.
It felt like it, didn't it? And right in the middle of this high-cost, high-hassle world, you've got these two guys, Michael Dubin and Mark Levine.
The origin story.
Yeah, they meet at a party, I think was late 2010 or early 2011. And they start chatting, bonding over how annoying and expensive buying razors is.
A very relatable complaint.
Totally. And it turns out Levine, through his own business dealings, had this massive surplus of razor blades, like 250,000 of them.
Wow. Okay.
And Dubin, he had this background in marketing and, interestingly, improv comedy.
Ah, the improv background. That makes sense later.
Definitely. So they combine Levine's razor access with Dubin's knack for connecting with people, for humor, and boom, the idea sparks.
Out of that shared frustration.
Exactly. They set up shop in Venice, California. Dollar Shave Club is born. And the initial investment, pretty small, relatively speaking, around $35,000, I believe.
Just 35 grand to take on Gillette.
Seems wild, right? Their vision was simple, though. Good, affordable razors, delivered straight to your door, and crucially, make the whole thing feel, well, less like a chore and maybe even a little fun.
But the challenge was immense. I mean, Gillette wasn't just big, they were iconic. 100 years of brand recognition, massive R&D budgets, distribution deals everywhere.
It was like challenging a T-Rex to an arm wrestling match, as the source material puts it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. DSC had, a warehouse full of blades and a lot of nerve.
A healthy dose of chutzpah, definitely. But that nerve, that audacity, that turned out to be key.
Which brings us to the video.
The video. March 6, 2012, they dropped this thing on YouTube. Our blades are fing great.
And it wasn't slick at all.
No, shot in one day, cost. That famous $4,500 figure. And it's just Michael Dubin walking through this warehouse talking straight to the camera.
But it was brilliant. His delivery was so deadpan, so funny, but also, like, totally on point.
He just lays it out there. Do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer.
The Federer line. Classic. And the bit about needing tech features like a vibrating handle or a flashlight.
Right, contrasting it with his grandfather who just had one blade and polio. It was just unexpected.
It was edgy, self-aware, and it just cut through all the usual marketing noise. Why do you think that specific humor landed so hard?
Well, I think partly it was the sheer honesty. You know, it voiced the frustrations everyone felt, but maybe didn't articulate about the price, the inconvenience, the perceived over-engineering.
It validated the consumer's feeling?
Exactly. And it did it with humor, not anger. It was relatable. Plus, the timing 2012 YouTube was still a bit more raw, more authentic. This low-budget, slightly coarse video felt genuine. It wasn't trying too hard.
And it wasn't just complaining. It offered a clear, simple solution. Pay $1 a month, plus shipping, get great razors delivered. Done.
That directness was powerful, and the impact was immediate.
Wasn't it like 12,000 orders almost instantly?
Within 48 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
Their website actually crashed. They were totally overwhelmed.
It's a good problem to have, I guess.
Definitely. And the video just took off virally. Years later, it had, over 27 million views. Won Ad Age Awards, Webby Awards. It became legendary.
Even its imperfections, the kind of DIY feel, added to the charm, didn't they?
Absolutely. It felt real.
Yeah.
And that authenticity paved the way for their whole business model.
The subscription model.
Yeah.
Which seems obvious now, but was pretty revolutionary back then, especially for something like razors.
Yeah, this razor as a service idea. It was just smart. So simple.
Yeah.
They had different tiers, right? The basic 2-blade for $1 plus shipping.
Then a 4-blade and a 6-blade, the executive, for a bit more. Still way cheaper than Gillette, though.
Oh, absolutely. And the genius was the convenience. No more thinking about it, no more running out. They just showed up at your door every month.
Takes one little hassle off your plate. There's a real appeal to that, isn't there? That set it and forget it feeling.
Definitely. It simplifies things. But DSC was clever. It wasn't just about price and convenience. They built a brand.
Yeah, that club aspect.
Exactly. Their whole communication style, the witty emails, the packaging, the social media, it felt like you were in on something cool, something a bit irreverent. You weren't just a customer. You were like a member.
Part of the club that gets it.
Right. And they didn't stop at razors. They quickly expanded. Shave butter, which became super popular, post-shave creams, eventually deodorant, skincare, hair stuff.
It became a full grooming brand, basically.
Pretty much, building on that initial trust and relationship. And the growth was phenomenal. By 2015, you're looking at 2 million subscribers, a valuation over $600 million.
Wow.
And by 2016, they were the #2 razor brand in the U.S. by market share. Think about that, in just 4 years.
That's incredible speed. It really shows how vulnerable Gillette's model was, despite its dominance.
Yeah, Gillette was built on that premium price, sold through retailers who all took their cut. DSC just bypassed all of that. Direct-to-consumer meant fewer markups, more savings passed on.
So the giant starts to notice, how did Gillette fight back?
Well, their first big move was in 2014. They launched their own subscription service, the Gillette Shave Club.
Okay, makes sense. Imitation, flattery, all that.
Sort of. But the execution felt off. The price point was still way higher than DSC's, something like nearly $20 for 4 Fusion Pro Glide blades a month. That works out to almost $5 a blade.
Ouch. Compared to DSC's dollar option.
Exactly. And they made some, let's say, optimistic claims about how long the blades would last. It didn't quite capture the DSC magic of simplicity and value.
Felt a bit like they were just ticking a box.
Maybe. Then, in 2015, things got more aggressive. Gillette sued DSC for patent infringement.
Ah, the legal route.
Claiming DSC's blade coatings copied their technology. DSC fired back with a counterclaim.
How did that play out?
It actually settled pretty quietly in 2016. No public details on the terms, but the perception for many was that Gillette was maybe feeling a bit desperate, resorting to lawsuits instead of just competing more effectively on price or model.
Interesting timing, too, because 2016 was also when
Unilever bought Dollar Shave Club for a cool $1 billion. Cash.
$1 billion. For a company started just 5 years earlier with 35 grand and a funny video.
It was massive news, and it gave DSC serious financial backing to keep growing, keep competing.
So what did Gillette do then with DSC now backed by a consumer goods giant?
They did start making more changes. They cut prices by 2018. Prices on things like Fusion Pro Glide were down an average of 12%. They tried diversifying into niche areas like razors for caregivers. And they embraced selling through Amazon more directly.
But still reactive, it sounds like.
Largely, yes. Playing catch-up rather than redefining the game.
Yeah.
And the numbers showed it. That dominant 70% market share from 2010, by 2016 it had fallen to around 54%.
That's a huge drop.
It is. And then in 2019, Procter & Gamble, Gillette's parent company, took that massive $8 billion write-down on the Gillette brand.
$8 billion.
Yep. And they explicitly cited increased competition from players like DSC and, interestingly, the trend of more men growing beards.
Wow. Okay, so the pressure was definitely mounting. Which leads us to another memorable Gillette moment in 2019.
Ah, yes. The We Believe the Best Men Can Be campaign.
That ad caused quite a stir.
It really did.
Yeah.
Launched in January 2019, right in the midst of the hashtag #MeToo conversation. It shifted completely away from product features and tackled issues like toxic masculinity, bullying, harassment, urging men to hold each other accountable and be better role models.
A very different message for a razor brand. Bold.
extremely bold, and the intention, many would say, was positive, trying to engage with an important cultural discussion.
But the reaction,
Was intense
like
and
what?
deeply divided. A lot of people felt it was preachy, that it painted men with too broad and negative a brush, that it was lecturing its own customers.
The hashtag boycott Gillette hashtag started trending. Their like brand sentiment scores took a nosedive.
They did. It became incredibly polarizing. While some praised Gillette for taking a stand, a significant portion of their consumer base felt alienated. It seemed like a miscalculation of how people connect with a razor brand. People buy razors for a good shave, not necessarily for social commentary.
Right, it felt perhaps disconnected from the actual product purchase decision for many.
And Dollar Shave Club's response was swift and, frankly, pretty effective.
What did they do?
The day after the Gillette ad dropped, DSC just put out a simple tweet. Welcome to the club.
Ooh, subtle but pointed.
Very. It perfectly captured the sentiment of those feeling pushed away by Gillette's message. And then they started rerunning their own, much more lighthearted, get-ready campaign ads.
Highlighting the difference in tone.
Exactly. It was a masterstroke, really. While Gillette was embroiled in controversy, DSC just reminded everyone of their fun, straightforward, customer-focused approach. It was opportunistic, sure, but very smart marketing.
It really drove home how different their brand philosophies were.
Absolutely. And this whole saga, Gillette versus DSC, it's about so much more than just shaving cream and blades, isn't it?
Totally. It's a case study for business in the internet age.
Yeah, you look at DSC's success, and it rests on, like, three main pillars, I think.
Yeah.
One, that disruptive direct-to-consumer model. Cut out the middleman, own the customer relationship.
2, the viral marketing. Using YouTube, using humor, creating something shareable on a tiny budget that had massive reach.
And 3, just a relentless focus on the customer, understanding their pain points, talking to them in an authentic voice, making them feel part of something.
And you contrast that with Gillette. Reliant on a legacy model, retail partnerships, brand loyalty built over decades.
Which DSC showed could be chipped away at pretty quickly with a cheaper, more convenient, and arguably more fun alternative.
Gillette tried to adapt, but as we said, it often felt reactive. They were patching holes, not really rebuilding the ship for these new waters.
And the humor aspect is key, too. DSC wasn't afraid to be irreverent. Gillette always felt much more serious, more corporate, focused on technical specs.
Different approaches for different times, maybe. So let's fast forward. Where do things stand now in 2025? Have the razor wars cooled down?
They're ongoing, but the landscape has definitely permanently changed. Dollar Shave Club itself has changed hands again since Unilever.
Right. Unilever sold it in 2023.
Yeah, to a private equity firm, Nexus Capital Management. Seems Unilever perhaps found it challenging to integrate and grow that D2C model within their larger structure, despite the initial billion-dollar splash.
Interesting. But DSC is still around.
Oh, yeah. Still a major player. They have nearly 4 million subscribers, apparently, holding around 7% of the U.S. market. And their product line is way broader now. Skincare, hair care, the works. They maintain a strong brand presence, especially online.
And Gillette, still the king.
Still the biggest player, yeah. Market share hovering around 50%, give or take. But it's not the near monopoly they once had. They face constant pressure, not just from DSC, but from Harry's, Billy focused on women's shaving and various other niche D2C brands.
So the competition is fragmented now.
Very much so. Gillette has its own subscription service, Gillette On Demand. They continue to innovate with products like their Skin Guard razor for sensitive skin. But that era of unchallenged dominance, that's over.
And DSC's legacy is bigger than just their own market share, right? They kind of opened the floodgates.
Absolutely. They inspired countless other DTC brands across totally different categories. Mattresses, glasses, luggage, you name it. They showed it was possible to challenge incumbents using the internet, clever branding, and a direct customer connection. They really changed how people think about buying everyday stuff.
So looking back at this whole story, what are the big lessons we can pull out, the key takeaways for anyone listening?
Well, first, know your customer. Like, really know them. Understand their frustrations, what they value. DSC won because they addressed pain points Gillette ignored or maybe didn't even see.
Second, the power of authenticity and, humor. That $4,500 video resonated more than millions spent on traditional ads because it felt real and it made people laugh.
Third, disrupt or be disrupted. You can't rest on your laurels, especially now. Gillette's slowness to adapt cost them dearly. You need to be willing to challenge your own assumptions, your own models.
And fourth, The internet changed everything. It leveled the playing field in so many ways, allowing Davids to effectively challenge Goliaths through platforms like YouTube and social media.
And finally, I'd say brand matters, but it has to be genuine. DSC built a community, a club, not just a customer list. That connection is powerful.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought to leave you with. As you go through your week, maybe look around. What other industries feel, well, a bit stuck? A bit like the razor market before DSC came along. Where else might a clever underdog with a fresh approach be waiting to shake things up? What other Goliaths might be vulnerable? Definitely something to chew on.